Walt Disney Company's live-action Snow White released this year, and honestly, I saw this train wreck coming a mile away. Disney has butchered way too many of its classics with unnecessary remakes. And let's be honest, none of these originals were broken to begin with. But that's what happens when the well of creativity runs dry. Instead of birthing something new, they keep recycling what was already perfect, slapping on political agendas, and calling it modern. No. What it becomes is a watered-down mess nobody asked for. The core of Walt Disney's legacy was imagination. That was the whole foundation. People didn't go to Disney movies or theme parks to get a lecture on feminism or economic anxiety. You went for the magic, the escape. That's the point. Even when you walk through the gates at Disneyland, the whole goal is to forget your bills, your heartbreak, your job stress, the chaos in the world, for a few hours of peace, color, and wonder. Now they've taken that dreamland and dragged it into the mud of real-world debates. That is a massive miscalculation. The live-action Snow White is a perfect example of this creative failure. The entire premise falls apart. We're supposed to believe Gal Gadot is jealous of Rachel Zegler? Be serious. Gal Gadot is objectively more striking. Now, Rachel Zegler does have a decent singing voice, but she's been one of the worst spokespersons for a film I've ever seen. The interviews alone tanked interest. Gal, on the other hand, bless her, cannot sing. Her scenes were cringe on a level that made me want to watch National Geographic animal mating rituals over the music numbers. That's how bad it was. And the CGI dwarves, that was a mess. They replaced real dwarf actors with weird, unfunny CGI creatures that took up space. Who thought it was a good idea to give Dopey a speaking voice? He was the heart of innocence in the original. His silence said everything. Giving him a voice stripped away what made him lovable in the first place. Then there's the love story, or lack thereof. Rachel Zegler had the nerve to say that the prince in the original was a stalker. But in this live-action version, this new love interest is following her around so much he looks like the stalker. It's awkward. Weird. Like she says. Unnatural. Creepy. And somehow they still made her look like she was following him half the time. The dynamic is off and uncomfortable. Let's talk about the plot holes. The queen disappears after breaking the mirror? That's it? What even was that? Then Snow White somehow ends up in control of the kingdom and throws a white party, which visually looks like a wedding. But of course it's not, because of feminism. So we get a weirdly somber bride of one moment celebrated by a bunch of extras who feel like set dressings. There's no payoff, no clarity, just confusion and glitter. The bigger problem? We are living in a time where creativity has flatlined. People are so consumed by political correctness and performance activism that they've forgotten how to imagine. Everyone wants to let AI do the work, but God gave you a brain for a reason. Yes, ChatGPT is a tool. I know, I use it all the time, but it's not a replacement for human thought. The irony is that we keep producing AI-generated content, but if you strip away every machine and every algorithm, your only fallback is your mind. And right now, the entertainment industry is proving how underused that mind has become. There's a massive deficit in real writers, real visionaries, real magic makers. Walt Disney himself, that man was imagination. He was set apart, consecrated even. He didn't just think outside the box, he lived outside of it. The man went bankrupt multiple times, took risks no one would dare take today, all because he believed so vividly in what he was creating and who he was created to be. He saw the unseen. He dreamed in ways the rest of us couldn't. But now, Disney's run by executives, not dreamers. They've turned it into a soulless machine chasing money instead of magic. They don't understand their audience anymore because they've locked themselves inside a creative prison. And you can't connect to people's hearts when you're too afraid to color outside the lines. So yes, Snow White was a disaster. And pulling the plug on Tangled was probably the smartest decision they've made in a while. It sucks for whoever was cast, but after this train wreck, it would have tanked too. Rachel Zegler didn't help things either. Her arrogance, her ungratefulness, she sabotaged the whole project before the trailer even dropped. In the end, Disney lost the one thing that made them special: passion. The passion to create wonder, the passion to tell stories, the passion to take us somewhere new. Until they find that again, every live action remake will keep flopping harder than the last, because people don't want political parables. They want to dream. And the sad truth is, Disney forgot how. This is the Faceless Helpmeet. If this spoke to you, hit the like button. If you want more truth without the filters, subscribe and turn on notifications. We don't perform here, we heal. Thanks for being part of something real. Growing up, I always knew who Diana Ross was. Growing up in a predominantly African American household, her music was being played all the time with the Supremes and in her individual music career. But for me personally, the only reason why I knew about her was because she was associated with Michael Jackson. And the story that she supposedly discovered the Jackson 5. Later on, that claim was debunked by Suzanne DePaz, who said it was actually her who discovered the Jackson 5 and not Diana Ross. Still, Diana Ross has a very long history in Hollywood. She's a legend. Multiple marriages, multiple children from different relationships, and several affairs. One of her daughters, named Rhonda, is actually the child of Berry Gordy, and she didn't even raise her. Her husband did at the time, and she was never married to Berry Gordy. Diana was known for being in control of her life, not taking instruction from anyone, and representing that proud "I'm black and I'm in charge" feminist persona. But let me be clear, I am not a feminist, and I don't align with that lifestyle at all. Fast forward to her daughter, Tracee Ellis Ross. I remember watching Girlfriends as a teenager. It was funny and relatable at first, but it started to lose its appeal to me and faded quickly away. Later on, I saw Tracee in what I believe is a fairly decent show, Blackish, on ABC, starring alongside actor Anthony Anderson. I also liked the Christmas movie she did with Eddie Murphy. Ironically, both of those projects she's involved with, she's playing the wife to black men around her age. But in real life, it's not a life that she chooses. On Michelle Obama's podcast, which I honestly didn't know existed until then, Tracee spoke openly about dating younger men. She says she avoids dating men her age because she believes they embody toxic masculinity. As she spoke, you could hear the Jezebel spirit coming through loud and clear. She prides herself on being in charge of her life, claiming she's embodied, looking for a partner. But the truth is, she doesn't want accountability. She wants the title without the responsibilities that come with being someone's wife or a helpmeet. She prefers younger men. Why? Because they don't challenge her. They're easier to manipulate, don't hold her accountable, and won't push back with structure or correction. That's the heart of it. She doesn't want correction, especially from men her own age who may be more grounded than she is. She wants control. Now, I study the role of a helpmeet, and it's not slavery. It's not about submitting to abuse. A helpmeet is a God-ordained position. A woman serving the Lord by serving her husband even when he's not saved. The Bible literally says if he wants to stay, let him stay. If he leaves, let him go. But if he stays, your role is still spiritual. Tracy's entire energy rejects that. She doesn't want structure. She wants to be the ruler of her own house, her own man, and her own world. Her own God. She wants to date someone she can mold, someone she can dominate. And she even hinted toward men who are gender fluid and feminine, which sounds like deeper personal confusion than preference. It's not about love, it's about control. God didn't design us to be alone. He created partnership for growth, for legacy, and for divine alignment. The Bible says it's not good for man to be alone, and it goes both ways. We're meant to sharpen one another. But Tracy doesn't want to be sharpened. She wants to be idolized. It's ironic that the two headline stories this week are Shannon Sharpe and Tracy Ellis Ross, both of them rejecting people their own age. Shannon wants nothing to do with older black women, and Tracy wants nothing to do with older men. Both of them prefer younger partners, and it all boils down to the same thing: control. And let's be real. Younger people are easier to buy off. Show a 22-year-old some money or a new car, and they'll play along to anything. But someone older, they'll ask the hard questions. They'll hold you accountable for your actions. They'll make you face yourself. And neither of these two seem ready for that. Tracy Ellis Ross is more than 50 years old. I believe she's 55. Dating someone 22 years old? That's not partnership. That's grooming. That's control. That's a desperate attempt to avoid maturity. Because what happens if one day she wakes up and realizes she wants marriage and children? It'll be too late then. Because she spent her fertile years playing queen bee instead of aligning with the divine design of womanhood. Yes, not every woman is called to be a wife. Or if you have to bend over backward to prove that you don't want that life, chances are you're wrestling with something you're too afraid to confront. Let's be clear. If a 55-year-old man was dating 22-year-old girls and proudly proclaiming it, he'd be called a predator. But Tracy gets to parade it as empowerment? No. That's delusion. That's a woman playing teenager at nearly 60. There's nothing glamorous about being an old sugar mama. Just like there's nothing glamorous about being an old whore. It's time to say it plain. Both Tracy and Shannon need to sit down and look at their lives. There's no virtue in avoiding your own age group. There's something broken in you when you feel the need to dominate a partner just because you think you have more money or clout. You weren't designed to play God over someone else's life. You were designed to grow with someone, not control them. God puts mates in our lives to bring out what He planted in us, not to inflate our egos, but to align with His purpose. If Tracy knew who she was in Christ, there are certain choices she simply wouldn't be making. And unfortunately, she's walking the same confused path as her mother. a trail paved in control, rebellion, and misplaced identity. It's time to wake up. This is the Faceless Helpmeet. If this spoke to you, hit the like button. If you want more truth without the filters, subscribe and turn on notifications. We don't perform here, we heal. Thanks for being part of something real. Let me be honest about something right now. I must confess that I'm not really up to date on movies nowadays. It just seems that creativity has completely gone out of the window. Everything's pretty much recycled, already done, been there, done that kind of thing. So I'm not too eager about trying to look at new releases. But when I start to hear people say things like, you better not go see that movie, I'm like, I wonder what they mean by that. Then I start to see all of the reviews coming up all on YouTube. Don't go see Sinners, it's demonic. And like I said, I confess, I'd never even heard of the movie until I started seeing the reviews from the religious community on YouTube. Then the little inkling came inside of me to dig down a little bit deeper and see what everyone's talking about. So I went to go see the movie myself. And I must say, Sinners is not just another vampire flick. It's a blood-soaked, yeah, there's blood, sweat-drenched, absolutely, spiritual background wrapped in Southern blues and buried trauma. This is a film that pretends to be about the undead, but it's really about the never healed. And if you're not paying attention, you'll miss the deeper story hiding under the floorboards of that juke joint. So let's break this down for what it really is. A historical horror that bites harder than people realize. Set in 1932, Clarksdale, Mississippi, Sinners drops us into the heart of a Jim Crow era South that's both oppressive and intoxicating. But this isn't just some backdrop, it's the bloodline of the film. You've got twin brothers, Smoke and Stack, who come back from World War I thinking they earn a slice of peace, only to return to a world that still sees them as less than human. This is not a fantasy, it's history. The sharecropping economy in the South was legalized theft. You farmed white-owned land, paid rent with your labor, and somehow always owed more than you earned. It was slavery in a new outfit. The film captures this desperation perfectly. The weight of it in every character's body language, in every note of the music they play, and in every ghost they try to dance away in that juke joint. That joint isn't just a club, it's a fortress, a sanctuary, a black-owned business in an America that tried to make black ownership impossible. And the fact that Smoke and Stack built it, wow, that's rebellion. That's survival. That's resistance in rhythm. Now, let's talk culture, because Sinners drips with it. The juke joint isn't just the stage for the story, it's the altar. Everything about it breathes. The wood creaks with ancestors. The music pulls the veil thin. And the characters aren't just dancing, they're conjuring. Gunmei Musaku's character, Annie, isn't just a performer or a priestess. She's a walking legacy of hoodoo, Black Southern spiritual practice rooted in survival, in healing, in knowing the unseen. The movie doesn't caricature her, it honors her. She doesn't fight with stakes. She fights with oil, song, and discernment. And then there's Sammy. That guitar of his, that's a weapon. It slices through silence. It calls the ancestors. And it even threatens the undead. When he plays, he's not just entertaining, he's testifying. Every blues riff in Sinners is a cry against oppression. Every harmony is haunted. You want to know what the vampires are? They're colonizers in formal wear. Remick and his clan aren't just villains. They're metaphors for generational exploitation. These vampires don't just thirst for blood. They thirst for dominion, for access, for cultural infiltration. That's why their rules matter. That's why they can't come in unless invited. They're not chaotic monsters. They're systemized evil. They seduce, assimilate, and devour from within. Sound familiar? Remick, the Irish vampire leader, complicates this dynamic. His heritage ties into a whole other layer. He's a descendant of an oppressed group that later joined systems of power. His folk music and restraint give him depth, but don't get it twisted, he still feeds. His civility doesn't cancel out the conquest, it's just dressed in a bow tie. Now the Irish context is subtle, but it's sharp. Remick isn't just Irish for decoration. There's a reason we hear Irish folk tunes drifting through the chaos. Irish immigrants were once marginalized in America. No Irish need apply signs were real. But as they assimilated into whiteness, many adopted the same structures they once suffered under. Sinners uses that to perfection. Remick represents that dual history, the memory of being the outsider and the temptation of power once you're let inside. He recognizes the pain in the Black community, but still participates in the feeding. He's not a monster by accident, he's a monster by choice. Here's a part no one's talking about, and it's time they do. The Asian characters Grace and Bo are essential to the story's climax, but they're treated like set pieces in most reviews. That's a mistake. These characters represent another layer of American history that gets buried. Chinese laborers were in the South post-Civil War. Many opened shops, restaurants, or laundromats. They existed in a strange, liminal space, marginalized by white society, but also distanced from Black communities. In Sinners, Grace and Bo aren't just background, they hold keys. It's Grace who eventually invites the vampires into the juke joint. Think about that. She's the one who opens the door. She's the fracture in the protective wall. And it's not random. It speaks to the fragile, complicated alliances among oppressed communities. Survival can make people betray, and silence is a kind of violence. So when people call Sinners just another horror movie, I know they weren't watching it. They saw the blood but missed the history. They saw the fangs but ignored the system. This is just another monster flick, they say, but it's not just another monster flick. It's a mirror. It's asking us what we're inviting into our homes, our bodies, our culture, and it's daring us to build spaces that evil can't enter unless we let it in. So no, I'm not letting this movie go unnoticed. I'm not brushing past the depth for some jump scares. Sinners is speaking, and I'm listening. In conclusion, a lot of people go around warning others not to watch certain things, not to listen to certain music, or not to engage with certain content, and they think they're helping. They think they're protecting someone by making the decision for them ahead of time, and most of the time it's based purely on what's obvious to the eye. They see vampires, they see blood, they see seduction, so their conclusion is quick. This is demonic. Stay away. But what they're missing is this. Yes, there are things that are demonically obvious, but there are also things just as demonic that are subtle. And it's those subtle things, the ones we overlook, that create the most access points in our lives. We forget that things like gossip, backbiting, treating people harshly, lying, walking around with a proud look, or being quick to do evil, those things don't look like horror scenes, but they're wide open doors. These are the behaviors we label as normal human nature, but in reality, they invite the enemy in just the same. The truth is, the devil doesn't kick doors in. He walks right through the ones we leave cracked. And a lot of the times, those doors are opened not through what we watch, but through the unrepented things we do or harbor, even unknowingly. So yes, be discerning about what you watch and what you expose yourself to, but also be just as discerning about what you excuse in your daily behavior. Because sometimes the real spiritual danger isn't on a screen. It's in the silence of your own unchecked habits. Gossiping about your husband, speaking curses over your children, doing something petty or vengeful just because you feel justified. These are the unseen access points. So, before you rush to call a horror film demonic, ask yourself, what doors have I left open? And would I even recognize the enemy if he walked right through them? You ever feel like you're not allowed to be broken? Like everyone around you is obsessed with healing, but you're still in survival mode, and somehow even that feels like failure. This isn't just about the soft life. This is about the pressure to perform peace, even when you're drowning in silence. This is the Faceless Helpmeet, and today we're talking about the exhausting contradiction of pretending to be okay when you're not. We're in a generation that doesn't just want healing, it wants healed aesthetics. We don't just say we're doing the work, we post it. We say we're journaling with a $50 pen and lavender burning in the background. We say we're meditating, but we're recording it in cinematic 4K. Healing is now a mood board, a brand, a campaign. And if you're still triggered, still processing, still battling shame, then you must be doing it wrong. You're not soft enough, not quiet enough, not healed enough to be palatable. Nobody tells you this part. Once you start healing, people expect you to never bleed again. You can't raise your voice. You can't ask questions. You can't show pain. because healed women are supposed to be gentle, gracious, grateful. But grace without grief, that's not healing. That's denial with lipstick on. Real healing is messy. It's loud. It's tearful. It's embarrassing. And sometimes it's not even done. What nobody says out loud is, you can know the truth and still be tormented by the lie. You can know your worth and still have moments where you beg for love. You can know what God says and still replay what He did. You can walk in your calling and still limp from the wound. That's not failure. That's being human. But this world makes you feel like if you're not constantly posting progress, you're broken, behind, or bitter. And that's not just unfair. It's spiritual abuse with a soft life filter. Healing doesn't look like rose quartz and a robe. Sometimes it looks like shaking, crying, praying, and dragging yourself through the day. Sometimes it looks like silence, because if you open your mouth, you'll scream. Sometimes it looks like pulling away from everyone, because peace costs too much to let just anyone in. You are not weak because you're not done healing. You are not fake because you have triggers. You are not behind because you still struggle with the memory of it all. You are healing, and healing isn't a vibe, it's a war. So if you're tired of pretending to be okay just to make other people comfortable, you're not crazy, you're not broken, and you're not alone. This is the Faceless Helpmeet, where we stop performing and start healing for real. Hit subscribe if you're done being silent in your survival. We see you. We are you. You ever notice how some of these influencer husbands just always seem to be around? They're there in the background, putting up shelves, tightening something with a screwdriver, smiling at the kids, standing next to her like a modern day Mr. Rogers with a tool belt. And yet, no one really knows what he does. There's no job, no schedule, no brand, no business, just vibes, and maybe a hammer. Let's talk about why these men are always home, but never working. It always looks so innocent. The wife is hosting a party. She's heavily pregnant, glowing, arranging flowers. The table is set for 30. The toddlers are in beige linen. And the husband? He's putting together a side table or standing behind her holding a baby. But here's the problem. None of it's real. It's curated, and he's been positioned, carefully staged to look useful, to protect the image of a perfect life, and more importantly, a perfect marriage. Because let's be honest, if he's truly the head of the house, then why is he always lingering in hers? Influencer culture has created a dangerous illusion that you can have it all, that you can run a business, raise 3 kids, stay fully made up, and host several seasonal parties in a neutral tone mansion without help, without stress, without burnout. But the biggest illusion, that the husband is right there beside her, working, contributing, building something too. Except he's not. He's always home because he's got nothing else going on. No job, no mission, no fruit that shows real labor. And instead of that being addressed honestly, he's blended into the aesthetic, decorated into the content, positioned like a soft focus accessory to complete her lifestyle brand. Meanwhile, you're watching with laundry piling up, a job to keep, a child to carry alone, and a man who's not even emotionally present, let alone fixing the doorknob in the background. And you wonder, why can't my life look like hers? Why doesn't my husband help me like that? Why am I so tired and she looks so happy? But the truth is, you're not behind, you're not broken, you're not failing. You're just comparing your reality to her production, and she's not telling you the whole story. What you need to know is this: that man probably doesn't have a job. That party probably had 3 assistants behind the scenes. That quick recipe was probably catered. That smile you keep seeing, it might be content, not connection. You're watching a woman build a business with a man standing beside her, but that doesn't mean he's building anything himself. You don't need to feel guilty for not being her, because she's not even her. She's a brand, a carefully curated illusion built to sell you an emotion you can never hold on to. The feeling of being enough, effortless, happy, perfect. But you're in the real world. And in the real world, real women are tired. Real husbands work. And real life is never beige. Don't be fooled by the feed. Don't measure your worth by someone's content calendar. And don't envy a man who's always home but never working. Because being present doesn't always mean being productive. And being visible doesn't always mean being valuable. You don't need to copy her life. You just need to reclaim yours. This is the Faceless Helpmeet. I say what others won't, so you can stop comparing your reality to her illusion. Have you ever watched someone share their life online so intimately, and yet you still feel like something's missing? She shows the babies, the husband, the holidays, the perfect meals, the gentle home, the new house tour, the matching pajamas, the prayer hands, the gratitude, but somehow the story feels half told. Because she shows everything except what he does. Today we're looking at the curated image of Nabella Noor Martin, a woman who built a brand on vulnerability, perfection, and soft femininity, yet somehow never shows you the real structure holding her life together. Nabella is known for her soft life. The music is gentle, the colors are beige, the energy is calming, her children are in neutral tones. Her husband is present, quiet, always nearby. She documents everything, the painful fertility journey, the vulnerable moments, the celebrations, the decorating, the soft mothering, the gratitude. But that's the thing about modern influencer culture. You can document everything and still hide the parts that matter most. The aesthetic is so calming, so gentle, so emotionally soothing that you forget to ask the most basic question. How does this work? Who's behind the camera? Who's paying the bills? Who's funding the soft life? Her husband is always nearby. He appears in every major life moment. He hugs her. He builds things. He holds their babies. He shows up in the reels, but never with definition. What does he do? What is his calling? Where is his fruit? And most importantly, why is he always home, yet never clearly working? This isn't an attack. This is an observation, because women around the world are watching these reels, wondering why their own husband doesn't help that much. But maybe he does. Maybe it's just that her husband has no other commitments. Maybe the reason he's always home is because he doesn't go anywhere. The danger of this illusion is that it puts shame on women who are doing it all. It makes women believe that women start to believe that they're just not organized enough when we see these reels, that they're not feminine enough or not soft enough. But in reality, we're comparing this hard, exhausting, unsupported life to someone's staged, managed, edited performance. And the kicker, even if her life is that peaceful, that doesn't mean it happened by magic. Someone or something is behind the scenes holding it all together. And if that someone is a husband who doesn't work, doesn't lead, doesn't produce fruit, and isn't building anything of his own, then she's not living in a partnership. She's living in a broadcast studio. This is the reversal no one wants to say. A man who is always in the background, always passive, always quietly producing in his wife's content is not a leader. He's a prop. He's there to fulfill the image, not to carry the vision. He's there to decorate the reel, not to lead the house. And over time, women who live with men like this begin to carry everything emotionally, spiritually, and logistically while still feeling like they're being helped. But help without leadership is not a partnership. It's an aesthetic. This isn't an attack on Nabella Noor. This is a lens to help women stop comparing their real marriages to staged illusions, to recognize that curated gratitude doesn't always mean true peace, and to ask the deeper question: who is leading this house? Who is building behind the scenes? Who's actually carrying the weight? Because she shows everything, but she never shows that. And maybe that's the point. This is the Faceless Helpmeet. The commentary no one else will say, but you've always felt. I want to talk about this Shannon Sharpe situation because it's blowing up almost as fast and maybe just as big as the P. Diddy situation. Now, I'll be honest, I didn't know much about Shannon Sharpe until I saw that Cat Williams interview. I remember seeing the thumbnail while it was live, and I actually thought Shannon was a woman at first. I'm not big on sports figures, unless it's the obvious names, like Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Tom Brady, or the Manning brothers. But what pulled me in was that Cat Williams interview. And what struck me wasn't just the humor. Cat Williams, if you really listen to what he says, carries a prophetic weight. He may not be a prophet, but people who make themselves available to God can still say things that are undeniably prophetic. His lifestyle might not fit the prophet label, but that interview was full of truth that has already started to come to pass and still is. It continues to do so, actually. In the same interview, I believe Shannon Sharpe mentioned that God had something to do with him starting his podcast. He said he wasn't going to do it at first, but then God gave him clarity, and it turned into a lucrative platform for him. But here's the thing. If God truly led him to start that podcast, then God didn't just give him partial instruction. God doesn't do anything halfway. He may not reveal the full picture all at once, but he always gives us what we need to move in wisdom. And Sharpe was given warnings. If you go back to the interview with Cat Williams, you'll see it. Cat gave a direct warning. He told Shannon to be careful with young white women and warned him that after that interview, he'd become a major target as a black man. And here we are. But that wasn't the only warning. Monique also was on the show, and she gave him another one. This time wrapped in comedy, but still prophetic in nature. She told him to stop messing with younger women, to settle down and marry someone closer to his age. Someone who would bring peace, not chaos. And while her delivery was funny, her message was laced with truth. Now look where we are today. Shannon Sharpe is being sued for $50 million by a woman 30 years younger than him, someone he allegedly assaulted. And if you've been paying attention, this isn't the first time. There are reports that other women have come forward before, and some were paid off. That makes this a pattern, not an isolated incident. The audio of him threatening that woman, the disturbing text, this isn't speculation anymore. He clearly struggles with sexual addiction, and he prefers to feed that addiction to younger white women. That's his documented pattern. And this is what happens when sin gets unaddressed. When you're warned and you ignore the warnings. When you start to believe your money makes you untouchable. Money doesn't protect you from consequences. It should give you discernment. But instead, it looks like it gave him arrogance. If Shannon truly believes God gave him this platform, then he should have stayed close enough to God to know what not to do with it. Because God doesn't just tell us to go, he also tells us what to avoid. But when you stop listening, when you become high-minded, that's when your private sins start leaking into your public life. He was warned, not once, but twice. Cat Williams, Monique, maybe other people outside of his platform. Two different people, two different times, saying the same thing in different ways. That wasn't coincidence. That was God speaking clearly. And instead of listening, he kept moving like he was invincible. And now everything is coming out. If this woman backs down, the damage is already done. The history is already on record. He's already been exposed as someone with a pattern of behavior that's been hidden behind charisma, muscles, and a camera. And the fallout could be huge, not just for him, but for the companies connected to him. He may not be working directly for Disney, but through ESPN, which is a Disney subsidiary, he's linked. And Disney is already under fire for enough bad decisions. They can't afford another scandal. They may have to cut ties with him entirely, and if they do, it's not going to be out of mercy. It'll be self-preservation. When it's time for exposure, things start unraveling fast. One story breaks, then another, then another. This is what it looks like when grace lifts. It could have been a private course correction, but he chose to ignore the loving correction of God through people he sent. So now the exposure is public, brutal, and possibly career-ending. Let this be a reminder. When God gives you multiple prophetic warnings from multiple sources, you better listen. Because if you don't, what could have been a whisper will turn into a storm. And no amount of PR, podcasting, or payoffs will be able to undo it. This is the Faceless Helpmeet. If this spoke to you, hit the like button. If you want more truth without the filters, subscribe and turn on notifications. We don't perform here, we heal. Thanks for being part of something real. So let me get this straight. You're juggling dinner, laundry, a full-time job, 2 toddlers, and a sleep schedule that was assassinated 3 years ago. But somehow you still feel guilty because someone online told you she's resting in her femininity while holding a glass of green juice in a silk robe at 10 a.m. with 3 nannies. Let's talk about it. This is the Faceless Helpmeet, and today we're breaking down the illusion of the soft life and why it's not really soft for the people holding it up. They told you the soft life was about candles, bubble baths, matcha lattes, and booking flights to Bali. But here's the truth. That ain't softness. That's sedation. Real softness, it's war disguised as peace, strategy disguised as surrender. It's a woman who looks still on the outside, but on the inside, she's stacking legacy, building walls, and deciding who deserves access. The modern influencer soft life is staged, curated, edited. But what they don't post is the real cost. The partnership they beg for leadership from. The fear of aging without substance, the burnout from pretending to be effortlessly healed. Soft life on Instagram is the new Stepford wife cosplay. It's performance, it's peace as content, and it leaves women broke, bitter, and confused when the illusion doesn't cash out. The soft life promises peace. It promises restoration. It promises that if you just light a candle, slide on a matching pajama set, and whisper boundaries into the void, your life will suddenly become aesthetic, healed, and financially stable. It's giving luxury. It's giving main character energy. It's giving heavily edited footage and external labor masked as divine feminine flow. But let's be honest, the soft life isn't built on softness. It's built on support systems you're not shown. Behind every influencer matching matcha is smiling in beige linen, there's a team. And sometimes it's a mom. Sometimes it's a housekeeper. Sometimes it's an invisible husband who never seems to work but is always conveniently present. You ever notice that? The husband's there, but never really doing anything specific. He's supportive, available, emotionally present, which is internet code for he's not employed, but she doesn't want to say that out loud, because she's ashamed. She has to be in charge. So let's call it what it is. The strategic stay-at-home husband. He might not be doing the dishes, but he's part of the brand. And if he's not working, someone else is, because that lifestyle isn't getting paid for with prayer candles and toddler photos. Now, let me tell you what the real soft life looks like. You don't raise your voice because you already raised your standards. You don't chase people because you're busy chasing purpose. You rest, not because you're weak, but because you have structure. Soft life is not passive, it's powerful. You make moves in silence. You study your enemy, your patterns, and your pain, and you weaponize your wisdom. The softest woman in the room is usually the most dangerous, because softness isn't fragility, it's control. And here's where the damage happens. You, yes, you, watch this life play out, and you wonder why your rest doesn't look like that. You wonder why your baby isn't calmly eating avocado toast in a bamboo high chair. You wonder why your house isn't beige, why your husband isn't wearing matching lounge wear while gently massaging your scalp in a sunlit kitchen. Because your life isn't a content farm. Your struggles aren't part of a monetized aesthetic. You don't have a nanny team, a brand deal budget, or a man who quietly surrendered his ambition to be a B-roll in your soft life reel. You have real responsibility, real bills, and real children who don't take naps on schedule. So no, you're not failing. You're just not faking it for views. People mock what they don't understand. That's why so many men online say soft women are lazy or high maintenance. It's why some women call it delusion. But truth is, softness is resistance. Softness is the refusal to break yourself, proving your worth to people who aren't worth the breath. It's not about gender roles. It's about not being submitted to aesthetics. It's about this. You fought for your peace. You almost lost your mind. You almost gave up. And now that you're here, they want you to apologize for not performing exhaustion. No. The lie to the soft life isn't that rest is wrong. Rest is biblical, necessary, and it's healing. The lie is that rest should look like luxury. That femininity should look like a curated highlight reel. That marriage should look like a husband who disappeared into a supportive fog while you live your dream with perfect lighting. It's not soft. It's strategic silence. It's production disguised as peace. And the more you compare your chaos to someone else's curated calm, the more you'll feel like a failure. When in reality, you're just living real life. And the more you compare your chaos to someone else's curated calm, the more you'll feel like a failure. When in reality, you're just living real life. So the next time you see someone resting in their femininity, ask yourself, who's paying for that rest? Who's holding up the life behind the camera? Because softness is beautiful, but honesty is sacred. This is the Faceless Helpmeet, where we speak what everyone feels but no one says out loud. And if you're tired of comparing your reality to her production, you're in the right place. If you're done performing the grind just to get crumbs, hit that subscribe button. This channel is for women who know peace is power and who are ready to call out the illusion and walk in truth.